Welcome to the Modco podcast. Conversations about life, organization, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. This show was created to provide motivation, inspiration, and a reminder to give yourself grace. Here, we are transparent, non-judgmental, authentic, and love to have fun because sometimes you need to laugh at yourself. I'm your host, Angel. Sit back and get ready for valuable tips, resources, laughs, and more. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back. And I hope you brought a friend.
Welcome to another awesome and exciting episode of the Marco podcast. Be sure to grab some food and drinks and just chillax.
Today, I am talking with Rachel Nelson. Rachel is a multi-passionate Christ follower who runs a high-ticket affiliate marketing business that specializes in financial and physical health with medical-grade products. In the process of building an entire faith-based community and training platform within the business community, and is the host of the This Is Me Attitude podcast, where she talks all about her relationships with God while giving tangible steps for others to take with them, along with fantastic conversations with guest speakers about their business and faith. Everyone, let's welcome Rachel. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, Angel. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the very welcoming introduction.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone, I am also, I recorded for Rachel's podcast as well. Both of us recorded in advance, so neither one of us know exactly when our episodes will air. So, but I will definitely let you all know when my episode with Rachel airs so that y'all can check out her show. And in the meantime, you can also check out. Sorry, let me say it again. I will let you all know when my episode airs so that you can check it out. And then also, while you're waiting for my episode to air, you can go ahead and check out her podcast, which of course I would link into the show notes for you all. Okay, I got it all.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much for adding that in there because I know that we had a great conversation over there. So I'm only imagining it's going to be even better here.
Oh, yes, I'm looking forward to. Yes, Rachel and I have had some great conversations. Started off with a coffee chat that led us to both wanting to be on each other's shows. And we had a great conversation on her show. And so I know today is going to be a great one as well. Rachel, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we get started today?
Ooh, I always feel like that's a loaded question when people ask that because I'm like, what do you want to know? Another fun fact about just me overall is my husband and I are expecting our first baby come January of 2025. So if you listen to this after that point and things look different than what we talk about today, it's because my life has made a drastic a change. For the better, though. I'm very excited. That's really the biggest thing that's been on the forefront of my brain, honestly, in the last little bit of time because we're going into the last stretch of before baby gets here. But yeah, that's the next big thing.
Also, yeah, Rachel and I have talked about pregnancy and mommyhood. And also, Rachel, I don't know if I mentioned this because I'm not quite sure if I knew when your due date was, but I really hope the baby comes on the 14th of January because that's my birthday and I'm always down for a birthday buddy. So I really, my fingers crossed. Everybody else that I've known that was having January babies, none of their babies came on the 14th. And I'm like, so you don't want to be my birthday buddy? I'm a little offended, but I mean, fine. So fingers crossed for January 14th.
I mean, I'll keep that in mind. We'll see what happens. I'm really learning that there's a lot more January birthdays than I ever realized because you're not the only person that's like, oh, what about this date? I'm like, well, as long as he comes in January, that's what I want.
In January, I can't really determine the date that he's going to come, but as long as it's in January. So, okay, well, baby, if you hear me, January 14th, I don't care what those other people said. January 14th, okay, from the lady who your mom records podcast episodes with. Oh, goodness. So, Rachel, how long have you been an entrepreneur and how did you get started?
Ooh, great question. So I have been an entrepreneur since, oh goodness, I think it was 2019 when I first started diving into all of the different aspects of being an entrepreneur. I first started in, those or your listeners might know this company, but I started in Beachbody workouts. And what it is it's a low ticket MLM, which I know that is a not always loved term in network marketing or just being an entrepreneur. But I did learn a lot from that business and learn how to be successful and not to be successful. I myself didn't see much like financial success in that business, but I did learn that being an entrepreneur is its own journey in itself, and the fact that you need to be strong and have the courage to step out in front of people that might not always want to hear what you're talking about, but and I say that when I like listening back to myself, I feel like that sounds rude or anything like that, but I don't mean it in that aspect. I mean it as in you're confident in what you're selling or you're confident in what you're doing. And that's a big aspect that I learned. And also that being an entrepreneur is a huge mindset thing, which I'm sure any entrepreneur that's listening to this will be like, yep, I totally understand because you really learn what works and doesn't work for just yourself as well. And then from there, I went to the business that I'm in now, which you mentioned in my bio, and that is where I sell water ionizers with a company called Enagic. And that company is based in Japan, actually, and it's been around for 50 years now. They just hit their 50-year mark. So if anybody wants more information on water ionizers, feel free to reach out after. I've learned a lot in that journey as well with having a medical grade product to be or to market and to use has been very, very beneficial. And then also with the podcast and now coming on other podcasts, I've learned that that's its own world in itself of being an entrepreneur, being able to talk to so many different people.
Okay, awesome. I love it. Yeah, I've heard of Beachbody before. I knew someone that did Beachbody. I actually lost a friendship over that because the person was doing Beachbody and I was like, I'm not interested. And they just kind of kept like hounding me about it. And I was like, I told you that I'm not interested. And they just wouldn't leave me alone about it. But they took my not being interested in Beachbody as if I didn't want to be friends with them anymore. And I was like, I never said that. I just, every time I talk to you, I don't want to talk about this because I've already told you that I'm not interested. So yeah, I've definitely heard of. Are they still around?
Yep. They're still
Okay,
they call it body now, I think. BODI. I still do the workouts. I honestly really like the workout programs. I just didn't like selling it anymore.
okay, got you. Okay, and so then, when did you start with your podcast? How long have you been a podcast host?
Yeah. So that in itself, like I said, has been a journey because I started the podcast in 2021. That was the same year that I switched from Beachbody to selling the water ionizers. And when I first started the podcast, I didn't know it was going to turn out to what it is today of what you heard in the bio of talking about faith and really seeing how God has worked in others' lives. It started out as I wanted to be able to give actionable steps to other entrepreneurs of what I've experienced in my journey and what's worked for me and what hasn't. Because when I was listening to other high end podcasters, I really saw that they were speaking about their journey in being an entrepreneur or whatever else they were talking about, but they weren't giving actual steps of like, oh, this is what I did. So I was like, okay, well, that's what I want my show to be. And then a few episodes down the road, probably a month or two after starting, God really flipped the switch on me. It was like, hey, you're going to talk all about your faith. And that was honestly very nerve wracking because I was like, you want me to what? Like, because at that point, I didn't talk about my faith publicly at all. And then to be going from not at all to, oh, I'm going to have a whole podcast about it. I was like, that sounds terrifying. But it has turned out to be a really, really good thing. And just being able to have the conversations that I do on almost a daily basis now. I've been recording episodes like crazy this season. And it's been so cool to see how God works in each and every person's life and how just different each person is, but also the testimonies. And I also have been connecting with a lot of other business owners. So to hear how their business has been working or has been successful has been really cool.
Okay, and so your podcast is it just like faith based with people giving their testimonies, or do you still do the entrepreneurial side of it with like the actionable steps to it, or do you combine the two?
Yeah, I would like to consider it's a little bit of both, with more heavily on the faith aspect of it, because that is the entirety of the whole show. My goal is to be able to help people grow in their relationship with the Lord and or start a relationship with the Lord. And I know that the second one is usually probably more common because it's you can tell right away that I talk about faith. So anyone that doesn't want to hear about Christian faith is probably not going to want to listen as much. but you never know. You never know who it'll be. And I still like to bring in the actionable steps, especially when I'm doing my solo episodes. I do talk about faith in those as well, but at the end, I always say, like, this is what's worked for me, and feel free to take what works for you.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I love that. And so, what is your favorite part about growing your podcast and growing your business?
Ooh, such a good question. The best part about my podcast and growing it is being able to have conversations like this. I have connected to so many people across the world now. The podcast has gone international. I've recorded with people in Australia. I've recorded with two people in Indonesia now. And to be able to say that, I think, is absolutely incredible. And just hearing again how God has worked in their life. The first question I always like to ask is, when and how did you accept Jesus into your life? And that question is, it sounds so simple, but then the responses that I get are so not simple. It's really cool to be able to see that. And then also the networking side of podcasting, like I would have never come on this podcast, or I wouldn't have come on a few other podcasts that I've been on if it wasn't for me hosting my own podcast and just asking one simple question if people wanted to come on as guests themselves. And I honestly posted that in one Facebook group and have gotten a ton of responses from it. So I say that to encourage listeners, if you are in network marketing of any sort or an entrepreneur, that I would very much recommend networking on any aspect that you can.
I agree with that. And while you're saying that, I actually thought of two people that I want to connect you with. One person I think I may have already connected you with, but another person just popped in my head. So I'll make sure I had to write myself a note and I had to say it so that hopefully both of us can remember once we finish recording this. But yeah, networking has been really, really good for me as well. That's how I ended up getting majority of my guests that I've had on my podcast. When I first put out well, when I first started my show, I wasn't even doing guests, and then I just happened to post in a podcasting group one day about my podcast, and someone was like, "Oh, would you be interested in doing a guest swap?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I think I was only in like one podcasting group, and then this person invited me to a whole bunch more podcasting groups, and I put out a call for guests, and I was just overwhelmed with. I got like 50 people that were interested. And I'm like, all these people are interested in being on my show. So it's really interesting. Once you find like that place, you do have to kind of oh, what's the word that I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, not validate. When you're like checking something out, I guess like do your due diligence. That's not the word that I'm looking for, but like kind of like get a feeling for the group, because there's been a lot of groups that I've joined and then I'm just like, no, this isn't for me. I thought it was going to work out for me. And then I just ended up leaving it. And I realized that I prefer smaller groups as well. So I have ended up leaving like a lot of groups that have like 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 followers in them, because I just feel like you get lost in the mix and you're just seeing the same things being posted over and over again. But I definitely do agree that it is a great tool that you can use, and you can definitely meet some nice people and some cool people that you can either you two can work together or collaborate, or they may know someone else that they can connect you to that will fit into what it is that you're doing. So I agree with you on that one.
I do too. And I just wanted to add in there the aspect of really checking out the group when you first come in, if it's like a Facebook group or any social media platform for that matter. There everyone and their brother, I feel like, has a Facebook group now, and you have to really see of what will work for you and what won't. And then there was something else I was going to say to that, but now I don't remember. So I'll just hand it back over to you.
If you think of it, just let me know. Just like interrupt me and let me know. So how do you make sure that you incorporate your faith not only into your personal life but also your business? Because I know it can be super easy to incorporate it into your business and be like, okay, yep, I mean, not your business, into your personal life, because you feel like that's your personal private life. But when you're incorporating it into your business, that leads to a whole like different thing and a whole different ball game. And so how do you make sure that you're able to incorporate your faith into your business?
Yeah, another great question. So, to be honest, I front my entire business and social media presence with faith. You can tell in my logo, it has a cross in it. So, especially on social media, for those that may not have the same belief system as I do or backgrounds, I know that just coming to my page probably won't align with them or work out. And that's something that I am very just, I don't want to say blunt, but I just say it how it is of like, this is what I post about. And that's totally fine if you don't agree, but you're probably not going to want to follow me then. And
Right.
um, with that, and I also want to encourage listeners too to have that much confidence in your business or whatever you're talking about, because it is helpful, and just having that aspect of not wanting to like put your foot down or put the stick in the ground and keep moving forward with it. And then let's see, other big things is that I pray about it, any business attribute that I do or aspect that I do before I do it. And that is a big aspect in the podcast. I mean, since you came on as a guest speaker, you know this too. I pray with each guest speaker before we record. I always ask God to be with us. And if there was anything, because I do a list of questions similar to what you do as well. And if there was anything that we didn't talk about before that he is now calling us to talk about, like I asked for him to tell us and for us to be obedient in that, and really just taking it day by day, because I mean, being a believer as well, and if there's any believers that are listening right now, they know that it is very much a daily walk with the Lord, and not something that you can just like pick up one day and then drop the next. And I think that goes hand in hand with being a business owner as well, because you want that consistency, and just the consistency of not wavering on either being a strong business owner or strong in my faith as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Is there ever like a time when you, I don't want to say like forgot about God, but when you kind of just did something in your business and it didn't turn out the right way, and then you're like, yeah, because I didn't consult God on that one. I need to go back and rewind and see what he has to say about this.
Oh yeah, yep. There's been multiple. I am in a season of realizing that it is God's timeline and not my own with the business, and just in overall life, to be honest. And especially in the business, I love to take action. I learn something and I'm like, oh, I want to do it right away. Like that seems like the next thing I should do. And like I want to move it like the speed of lightning sometimes. And I know God is like sitting there being like, stop. Like I told you to do 2 steps. You want to do 20. Meh. Like we'll take it at this pace. And that's honestly very hard for me to do. So that's another aspect that I've been praying about more and more. A big part that really fits with this question is when I first started the water ionizer business, I was not as strong in my faith. I didn't have the relationship I do now with God. And it really shows in the fact of how the foundation of my business had to change once I became a strong believer and realized that I put God first over everything in my life. So that in itself has been probably the biggest aspect of where he's really shown me like, yep, you moved ahead. You weren't listening or weren't didn't and at that point I didn't even realize I wasn't listening to him because I didn't hear his voice. And now that I do, I'm like, oh, okay, got it. I'll take a pause. I'll try to do that again. So
Yeah. I think we actually talked about that a little bit on when I was on your show, because I'm the same way. It's like he tells me something and he'll tell it to me and he'll give me the vision of like how it's supposed to look at the end. And I'm like, okay, I need to do this and this and this and this. And like you said, he's like, I told you to do steps 1 and 2. You are now on step 15, and that's not where we're supposed to be. And I'm like, oh, but I thought you just needed me to help it along a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I didn't really ask for your help. I just asked for you to do steps 1 and 2. And then I'm just kind of sitting there like, well, when are we going to get 3 and 4? Steps 1 and 2, that happened about 7, 8 months ago. And I'm just trying to figure out here, with 3 or 4 coming anytime soon. Like you told me this was a 20-step plan, and I feel like we're kind of lagging on it a little bit, but just in here, just an update here. So I definitely get that. I know God sometimes is just shaking his head at me like, this girl, she is so hard headed. I get it. I get it, Rachel.
yeah. And I'm very much in that season right now because it has come from connecting and networking. So it goes back to us talking about that. But I've connected with so many different business owners and have had different opportunities come up with adding to my business or not completely changing it, but just kind of going a different way. So now I've prayed about a bunch of different things. I'm like, okay, God, you brought all these people in front of me. Now, which one or which opportunity do I take, or which way is the business going to go? And to be completely open and honest, I haven't heard a full answer yet, and that has been the it's hard. But I mean,
Yeah.
walking in faith isn't meant to be easy. Where it's said in scripture that it's not going to be easy. So
It's not like, God is really good for giving you half the message, and that bothers me sometimes too. Like he'll give me part of it, and I'm just like, okay, and then what? And then it's just radio silence, and I'm kind of like, did you forget that we was talking here? Like, did you forget what you were gonna say? Did you not write it down in your notes? I mean, I just need to know what's happening because we're having a full-blown conversation. You kind of just walked away like mid-sentence and left me hanging, and now I don't know what to do. And it's just nothing. And I'm like, cool. Alrighty then. So this is what we're doing. So yeah, I get that too. And those tend to be the times that I sometimes end up going rogue because I think that I knew what was supposed to be happening. And then that's when I get that and I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it I uh can understand and relate to that as well. And it goes to show that he purposely doesn't give us all the steps, because I mean, if you were to give us all, like, if you were to look in any story in the Bible, like Noah per se, if God would have given Noah all of the different steps right away, he probably would have been like, I don't want to build the ark, God. Like that sounds crazy. Why would I want to do that? When it really is just step by step. And he's, in my experience at least, every time that I've done that, he's looking for the obedience in each step compared to trying to see the overall big picture, which that's genuinely how my brain usually works. I want to see the overall big picture, and
Right.
it's hard when I don't, because I'm like, okay, like what's the next one? And he's like, you didn't fully finish this one yet. Why are you going to step 4 when you're still halfway through step 2? So
Right. And, listen, you brought up Noah, and like that's another thing. Like reading the Bible when I'm like reading it, because I think I told you before, like I'm just now starting to really like get into it and kind of understand it. Plus, like they don't ask a lot. They didn't ask a lot of questions. God's just like, okay, go sacrifice this lamb. And they're like, okay, sure, let me go sacrifice this lamb. God's like, hey, Noah, go build this boat. Noah's like, okay, cool. Me, I would have been like, so God, why am I building this boat for? What do I need to do? I've never built a boat before. So what exactly? How do you want me to do this? Like, I would have had this long list of questions for it. Like, well, does it have to be a lamb? What if I can't find a lamb? What if the lamb runs away from me? I just and that's probably why sometimes he's just like giving me bits and pieces of stuff or just ignoring me because he's probably just like, Angel, you know what, right now, it's can you please just do the one thing that I asked you to do? And we'll get to the whys later. I promise you it'll all work out. Just do step one and I'll get back to you when you finish that step there. I'm
yeah.
gonna get better. I promise. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna be like more like Noah and just be like, okay, cool, okay, God. But he knew what he was doing when he created me. He made me curious to ask questions. So I mean, oh. So how do you stay organized and balance your faith and your personal life and your business and just anything else that you have going on?
Yeah, that I feel like is a very loaded question, because I sometimes I'm like, I'm so organized and it's great. And then other days I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, what is organization? I don't even know. Um, but in all seriousness, in the like more practical ways and ways that I'm organized in my business. So if it sounds like I am reading something, it's because I actually took notes, so I remember each aspect to say it for the listeners.
I love it.
So that would be but I really use everything with Google, and that is Google Calendar, Google Doc. Like Angel already knows, for my guest speakers, I send out a Google Doc, excuse me, that has
Mhm.
everything that they can expect before recording day, on recording day. I explain things thoroughly, probably too much sometimes, because I am very type A when it comes to that. I don't like surprises on different things like that, and I don't want anyone else to have surprises. And then Google Sheets is another thing that keeps me very organized. So, in the specific example of being a podcaster and having different guest speakers on, as soon as someone says that they're interested in coming on the podcast, their name gets put on my sheet. Because I know if I do not put their name on the sheet or put their contact
Mhm.
info, I'm going to forget I had the conversation with them, if I'm going to be completely honest. Because especially going through pregnancy right now, pregnancy brain is a thing. Very much
It
so.
is. It is. Yep.
uh,
And I told her it does not get better after pregnancy either because then you get mom brain, and I'm honestly not sure which one is worse. So
Yay! Can hardly wait. We'll see. Um, but yes, I know for a fact in just being busy with personal life things and for my business that if I don't write down really anything that comes into my head anymore, I'm like, oh, it's gone. And that I just think is not the greatest. And I don't say that in like, oh, I have a horrible mind or a horrible memory because I think I do have a good memory. And most of the time I remember things, even if I've written it down, but still having that backup is always nice. And then a big thing for my Google Calendar is I every single meeting that I have in regards to business, podcast, or if I were to meet like a friend for coffee, I put everything in my calendar. That helps myself and then my husband as well because he'll be like, "Oh, what are you like doing today or this or that?" And I'll be like, "See, it's on my calendar. Like, I'll show
Mhm.
you. It's right
Yep.
there." And that's honestly very useful that I recommend for everyone to have and just having some sort of calendar, if that's a paper planner, if that is Google Calendar, whatever it could be. And let's see what else. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say on that, and I don't remember. Yeah, I think that's really everything. And I mean, it also goes back into um, in staying organized in like my faith and my walk with the Lord there. I every morning I'm in the Bible. I have the YouVersion app, which is a very popular one that probably listeners have heard of before. That keeps track of the reading plan that I'm in. I'm currently reading the entire Bible this year chronologically, and being able to mark off what chapters or what sections I've read that just makes my like planner brain very happy because I'm like, oh look, I got that done. Look, I got that done. Great. And just having that routine. Oh, routines. That's the thing I wanted to say. And being organized has been a huge, huge help for me. So I purposely wake up earlier in the morning. I'm up anywhere from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. usually. Again,
Oh,
some days
goodness.
are a little different being pregnant. Sometimes I just need my sleep. But with that, I wake up right away and have time in the Word. And that's, I use the YouVersion app, like I was saying. And then I go right from reading my Bible and journaling and praying to working out. And I have implemented that morning routine for a handful of years now. And now, if I don't get time in the Word or my workout in the morning, like I'm a cranky person and I'll be the first one to admit it. Like I want my time in the morning to myself and Debbie with God before I talk to anyone else. That includes my husband. I love him dearly, but some days I'm like, okay, goodbye. You're going to work. I want to be in the Bible.
Right.
um, and I'm sure that that'll be changed or altered a little bit come becoming a mom because obviously you have to take care of little one and being in the newborn stage will be a different experience for sure, but I know that I will still keep those two things in some sort of routine and hopefully right away in the morning. But I just wanted to also mention that because it's very it's been very helpful to me, and then also with the Google Calendar, time blocking has been a huge thing as well. So
First of all, I just want to say that people that get up at 5 a.m. when they don't have to, you all are just like a special breed of people. My husband is one of those. He 7 days a week, he's up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, why? Please leave me alone. Don't talk to me. I don't want to have conversation. Like, I don't want to make plans for the day. It's 5 a.m. It's still dark outside. I don't understand it. He's like, yeah, when I wake up on the weekends like a normal person, 9, 10, sometimes 11. He's already done all of these things for the day. And he's like, well, if you didn't sleep the whole day away. And I'm like, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I absolutely refuse to. And our son, it just kind of depends with him. Sometimes he'll get up early with my husband, and then sometimes he'll sleep in late with me. But whenever he does like get up early with my husband, he knows like we don't bother mommy. Mommy is asleep. I think actually, 'cause so my husband used to take my son to school, but now, like, I've started taking him to school because my
Mhm.
schedule's changed, and then I'm supposed to go to the gym after I take him to school, but some mornings I'm just, like, lazy, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't feel like getting up. No, I don't feel like doing it," and I told I'm like, "If you don't go to the gym in the morning, that means that I'm not gonna go to the gym because then I'm just gonna be like, oh, can you take him to school?'" So husband didn't go to the gym, so he was taking our son to school and he needed something. And he was like, well, go ask your mom. My son said, but mommy is asleep right now. He said, well, go wake her up because we need. He's like, yeah, I have no issue waking her up. Go wake her up and ask her. So he's like, mommy, I'm like, I heard it. I'm getting up to do it. But yeah, y'all who get up at 5 a.m. for just no reason. I mean, you have a reason, but still, I just feel like that can be done at 7 o'clock in the morning. But that's just me. That's just me. You guys continue to start your days at 5 a.m. The rest of us will sleep in and enjoy it. And then I also, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say each person is different. It very much
Yeah.
depends on the individual. I know for myself, I on weekdays I try to get up between 5 and 6. Like I said, I say try because some days, especially being pregnant, I'm like, we're sleeping,
No.
and like my
Mhm.
husband will leave for work, and I'd be like, that's great, I love you, bye. But
Yeah.
there is
Well,
other days that I feel really good about getting up that early, and I honestly love being able to be up before the sun rises because then I get to see the sunrise, which I know not everyone is like cares about that or is like, oh yeah, I want to see it. And the other aspect is being able because I don't take meetings until 10 a.m. So if I get
okay.
my morning routine in by like 8:30, then I have a solid hour and a half that I'm like, oh, I can check my emails, I can do this, like I can feel more prepared before taking meetings and like actually talking to people in that aspect. So it's been a huge help. So if that's useful to the listeners in any aspect.
If I get up at 5 a.m., I am not taking a 10 a.m. meeting because I'm going to be taking a nap at 10 a.m. That's just, I'm taking a nap at 10 a.m. But like everyone has their own thing that like works for them and that like works out for them. I usually feel like more my brain's ready at like night times, like get stuff done and like work and stuff like that. But I have to adjust as well because nighttime routines with my son, like reading and doing those things. And then sometimes after I do that, I just want to lay down. So I have to some days I have my good days where I have a balance of stuff. I'm like getting stuff done and knocking stuff out. And then other days I just have a day where it's like, it is what it is. The chips fall. They fall where they may. And another thing that you brought up that I like was that you use like your digital calendar, but you also have like a paper planner too. And I love it. Like people pick on me for having a paper planner still, but I'm like, I need it because sometimes the phone erases stuff. And I will keep my planners from like the previous year so I can go back and look because with some things like with your doctor's appointments, certain ones they have to be like 365 days or like your dentist appointments or something have to be exactly 6 months. And if the phone's erased it from when I went, then I don't know when I went. So I just like to be able to flip back through my little planner and be like, okay, this is the date that we went and all is well. So I agree with you on that aspect, Rachel.
No, I honestly, I just recently over this last year switched everything over to Google Calendar, so I don't have
Okay.
per se a paper planner right now. But
Okay.
especially when I was in college, I lived by my planner that was paper. I had everything in there for like the due dates of papers and this and that. I went to school for journalism, so I was writing papers all the time, and it just worked out so much easier to have it in front of my face because I was already like
Mhm.
writing notes and stuff. So if there's any people that are in college or going through that, that's a big thing that I recommend is having an actual paper planner because in that
Yes.
season of life it worked so much easier for me. And if like professors would change like a due date on it, I'd be like, oh, okay, it's right there, I'll change it now. And
Sure.
not that you say you can't do that on Google Calendar, but sometimes it is just better to have the physical form. But with also that being said, I have sticky notes by me all the time. I've
Oh,
got like a
yes,
few
me
that
too.
are stuck to my desk right now that of things that I want to get accomplished. So I am a sucker for to-do lists and tend to overdo the to-do list and have to remind
Yep.
myself that I'm human and cannot do a thousand things in a day.
Me too.
So
Yep.
there's that.
No, me too. Yep, I have a whole bunch of like sticky notes, stuff that like I write sticky notes on. I have them on my computer, and my son actually found them last night. He's like, "Well, you have sticky paper," and I was trying to do something. I was like, "What is sticky paper? Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Can I use some of it?" I was like, "No, you have your own stuff." And he's like, "Please." And so I looked, and he was talking about the sticky notes, and I was like, "Okay, you can use like a couple of sheets of paper." And so one of them he wrote "hi" on. So I kept that one and I put that on my computer. But the rest of them he scribbled on. I'm like, you use my sticky notes to scribble on them. Like you you know how to write. You could have actually written something. Now that's 3 less sticky notes that I have. So That's how I feel about that. Well, Rachel, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we head out for the day?
To one, have a great rest of your day, regardless of when you're listening to this. And two, if you are a believer or want to have ever thought about looking more into being or what Christianity overall or having a relationship with God, I just want to encourage anyone and everyone to do so because that is very helpful and insightful. And if you want to listen to my podcast or be a guest on my podcast, I am always looking for people to be able to do that as well. And really just thank you, Angel, for letting me come on your show.
You're so welcome, Rachel. I enjoyed this conversation. Where can everyone find you at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know that Angel have my digital business card that'll have all the links to really anything that I do on social media or for my website. But if you want to go follow me on Instagram, that's the biggest spot that you can reach me. And my handle is at Rachel Fun Nelson. And then the podcast is at This Is Me Attitude Podcast.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. As always, I have enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm sure that we will be chatting again soon.
Of course. Thank you again for letting me come on.
You're welcome. Are you loving the Modco podcast? Head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps others to find the show and gets the show listed in the recommendation section. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode and that you're able to gain something from it. Talk to you next time. Thank you to Chris Leonard for the music for this week's episode.